Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Once again, we're back. We are tapping into and deconstructing the lessons that we have in terms of the experience and expertise that we have in the building here at QAS. And Troy, thanks for coming along to join us today. We have had numbers of different angles, and certainly, actually, purely from my experience, I haven't had anything to do with a high performance director until prior to being here 4 months ago. So I'm super interested to find out how it works, where it sort of fits in the space, and obviously hear a bit more about your story too. So thanks, mate. Really
Pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank you.
So yeah, if we just sort of dive into your story, then just kick off. How did you end up here?
Do you want me to go way back?
As far back as you want. Yeah, go back.
I'll give you a really quick way back. Some of you know I grew up in this area. I was born in Sunnybank down the road. That is way back. Ended up going through a combination of schools around the area of Runcorn State School, living in 8 Mile Plains. My high school was McGregor High School down the road. A couple of great students like Bronnie Thompson on our board have come from there. So knowing this area extremely well, I lived across the road from the bottom car park for a few months while we were building a house. So I've always been around this neck of the woods, and for me, I've always loved sport. When I was going through school, I actually loved athletics, particularly primary school. I was, in the 100 and the relays.
What was your PB?
I can't remember back then. Probably
Talent ID,
13 seconds something. Back when you're a little shorty in primary school. Used to love long jump.
Yep.
Come across this family called the Taremas. They were the nemesis. You'd get through your zone and go to the regions, and then you'd come up against Stacey Tarema and he'd towel you up. And I think I jumped 444 or something like that back in when I was about grade 6 or 5 or something.
Yep.
Really enjoyed that and getting to race and compete here in those things. At the same time, I used to love riding my skateboard. Used to do that around here quite a lot. I said to someone the other day, I had my biggest accident of my life in the bottom car park, riding it when I was about an 8-year-old from the top to the bottom, and got massive speed wobbles and fell off and lost a lot of bark. So love sport, love lots of free activity type sport. I got more toward like a tennis pathway. I remember my mum saying to me when I was in primary school, "Oh, you should play tennis, it's a great sport, and you do this." I'm like, I don't want to play that, that's a stupid sport, I don't like it. And I ended up getting to it because a good friend of mine at high school was someone that I used to ride skateboards with all the time, and like on a Tuesday afternoon, all of a sudden at 4:30, he said, "I can't ride skateboards today because I've got to go to this tennis lesson." I'm like, what for? Like, we're gonna do this. No, got to go to tennis. So that was just down at Sunnybank Tennis Centre. So after a couple of weeks, I'm missing, my mate on skateboards on a Tuesday, whatever it was, and so I thought, I'm going to go and see what this is about. So I popped in with my board, rode down the hill, and watched his tennis lesson. I thought, geez, that doesn't look that hard. And so I thought, I'll go and give that a try. And so all of a sudden, I started going to his lesson a couple of times, and then we started to play a little bit in between, and it sort of went from there, and started to beat him a little bit, and then he stopped playing tennis, and I kept going.
Yeah, okay. And so where did your tennis career take you then?
So toward the end of my high school years, in the scheme of things, I started extremely late to where they start, either now or where they have, the very, very best players. But I finished high school, I was 16, turning 17 in grade 12, and I'd never really been exposed to going to uni and doing all that sort of stuff. No one in my family had ever done that. The school had never really given a lot of guidance. I had this thing, originally I loved the geometrical drawing at school, so I thought, I'd love to be an architect because I love drawing stuff, but tennis got in the road of that, and I just thought, I'll come out of school and I'll have a go. I had a go for a few years, realised I was going to lose a lot more money than I'd ever make. Bloody tough on the body, like running around on concrete for 4 or 5 hours a day, stop-start, is tough, financially difficult.
Yeah.
And probably for me, I probably overthought things far too much. a bit of paralysis by analysis in your own sense. But so yeah, you could continue to struggle along for a while and get to a professional ranking point, never at a level to make money, but I think I made a couple of things happened that gave me a chance to make a better decision at a point in time.
Yeah, right. And so you ended up going to uni then? Were you playing uni or tennis at the same time? Or?
No, the uni that I did was a lot later in life.
Oh, okay.
So toward the back end while I was playing, I started doing a lot of practicing with, good enough to play and practice with good people. I practiced a lot with Pat Rafter for many years when he was sort of going from 100 to sort of top 20 in the world. People like that when they were at home. But I started coaching part-time to fund what I was doing. And the state program at the time was based at Milton, and Tennis Queensland made a decision to get rid of the state program. They fired all the coaches. So the state coach ended up where I was down the road here. And all of a sudden you're exposed to a whole new level of coaching and someone with much greater insight and stuff. And I was so excited by, here's this new person, a new approach, new methods. And after about 3 or 4 months, I was completely hooked on the coaching side of, geez, I can really get that far better than I could get it as a player. And I was really lucky because a good friend of mine at the time who we were going through a similar sort of journey, he was a little bit older than me, said to me, geez, I'm really enjoying this. I'd love to work with this guy more. And then all of a sudden, the former state coach had said, oh, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go and start my own business. And my mate said to him, oh, well, can I come and work with you? And I was never someone at that age and stage in my life to say to him, oh, me too, I want to do that. But I was lucky that my mate sort of grabbed me and said, we've got to go and follow this bloke. So I did, and it led to a lot of great opportunities of working with some of the best.
Who was that coach?
Graham Brimblecombe, who was the state coach at that time, or one of them. And yeah, it just gave us an opportunity to be exposed to the best juniors in the state, to coach them, and then it sort of jumped from there to working with some guys who were breaking through the professional ranks and coaching them. And then I really started to get into the whole, how do you make your own opportunities? I started to get more confidence in being able to go and talk to people and approach people on opportunities. So I jumped on board with a guy, Andrew Kratzman, who was a doubles player, good doubles player, got to 13 in the world, and spent a couple of years, probably 2 or 3 years, not full time, but in and around when he's at home, and some travelling for different things to just be immersed in that deeper environment at a professional senior level on the ATP tour. And that just sort of opened up more and more doors along the way.
And so you sort of progressed from coaching then into the high performance, I guess, or administration side of sport. What did that look like as a transition?
Yeah, good question. So not long after that, I got a job at Tennis Queensland as the assistant state coach, but effectively running the whole program because Jeff Masters, who was the state coach, was the tennis coach here at the QAS. That relationship had just formed. So we pretty much did this, and those were the times when it was like Sam Stosur when she was 13, and sort of that sort of age group back then. So I sort of managed that, and then very quickly I moved to a role within Tennis Australia back in 2001 as a national coach in the 14 and under space. So it sort of became, I started getting really interested in not only the coaching side and working with very good athletes, both junior and senior, but also the whole program management. So I had a lot of responsibility of working with the state programs and talent ID. And over time, you develop this interest to, as a coach, you really enjoyed seeing the influence you had on athletes and seeing the connection that you have and how much, take a huge amount of pride when someone wins and, feel the kick in the guts when someone loses, but also know that you've put a lot of work in. So I've really enjoyed that side of it, but it's as you transition into that other role, it just became, just view it differently from I can still gain as much satisfaction out of watching the programs you're putting in place achieve results, even though you're not coaching the athlete firsthand.
Sure.
So that was a lot of fun. So, and being on court, coaching, 35, 40 hours a week, some days, I don't know, 10 hours out of 12 in 35-degree heat on concrete's not fun.
No, I bet.
And it wears. And, you know, 5:30 starts, finishing at 7, you'd go home in the middle of the day for a quick sleep and just to survive, and then you'd work pretty much, I don't know, 35 weekends a year, because this tennis is a sport where you play and play and play. It's not like you play 3 or 4 times a year. It's kids will play anywhere 50 to 100 matches a year, so you always be there. So.
Yeah, awesome. And so in terms of, and then, okay, so you moved across into the sort of the high performance space then through the sort of program set up, I guess, with Tennis Queensland at the time. And then how did that transition then look into the QAS then?
So just before I moved back from Melbourne to Brisbane, just thinking back to the university, I got to a point where I thought I really want to do something to put myself into a different position. Having lots of sport-specific experience in a range of different areas, whether it be high performance. I used to work closely with the events team and the participation team, because I believe strongly that all those connections exist. But I ended up enrolling at Deakin and did my first 4 units to get a postgrad certificate in sport and business. On reflection of that, it was one of the best things I'd done, because it taught me how to write far better, how to research better. But I also wish post that I didn't choose the sport route, and it was maybe more just the business side of it, because a lot of the stuff you'd hear, you know, from the lecturers around, oh, this is what sport participation looks like specifically, and here's some examples. And then for me, and it was more just because of my exposure to it, you go, well, actually in the real sense, when you sit in the boardroom and listen to the discussion, it's very different, all the approaches. Sure. And then transitioning to here, so I moved back to the state when they built the new tennis centre here in Brisbane, the Queensland Tennis Centre, to work in the National Academy program. And then that's really where I started to connect here far more from the QAS support the tennis program. So it was really talking to Barry a lot, you know, around Barry to answer at the time of what are we doing, how are we going, all the reporting and interacting then with other programs. And I remember sitting in this room for a coach workshop. Alex may have been here, and this would have been about 6 years ago, talking about the AMS. Barry asked me to come in and present on it, and it was really interesting. Like, there was about 30, 40 people, and I got a very interesting response from a couple of people.
Yeah.
AMS, I don't have time to do this sort of, you know. Yeah. So from there, it was just having good opportunity to be exposed, and I guess it gave people like Bennett a chance to understand me and who I was and what I thought and what I stood for. And then when the opportunity came up, I thought, geez, I'd love to. It's an organisation I'd really love to be a part of, what it stands for, what it's trying to do for athletes, the types of people and all the different roles that we have within it. Yeah, let me in, please.
Yeah, right. And was it part of the appeal to sort of broaden away from tennis at all, to expose to other sports? Or?
Yeah, look, at the time, I wasn't on the hunt. I'm not someone that will go actively looking all the time for a new job and that sort of stuff. I feel like if I'm in a good job that I really enjoy, I'll always try and how do I do it better and improve it, and never get stuck in, oh, this is just how it's done, and that would annoy me. So it sort of all of a sudden just came up, oh, this job's available. Like they hardly ever came up, you know, or come up. So it was, gee, if I'm going to have a go, like it may not come up for another 4 years, 8 years, just to have a crack.
Yeah.
Bit unknown as to what each program looks like and the needs, and tennis is very different from what our total QAS budget is what tennis would spend in the academy program around the country, you know, for an underage, say under Davis Cup and Fed Cup level. So the money is quite different from what you could do from a resource perspective, but the principles are still the same. Yep. The methodology is still very similar.
What are those principles in your mind?
Well, I think, you know, you sit down in sports. I remember we went to a water polo meeting, as an example, in May 2013, and we're talking about coach education and structures. We know we need to develop lots of coaches, but good coaches who have got alignment to a framework of development, you know, like a long-term athlete development pathway or under the FTEM model and those things. So
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the F10.
Oh.
What is that?
it sort of just recategorises athletes into certain stages of development and then aligning different skill progressions and that sort of stuff alongside that.
Yeah.
But as you experience, as you go through each of the different programs, there's so many commonalities of the way to approach improvement. You know, good coaches, great support teams, really clear plans around the athletes. How do you measure progress? A lot of those things. Probably the most difficult thing in this environment is you've got so many different sports to do it with at once, as opposed to worrying about one program that's pretty contained and you can feel you can go really deep.
Yep.
Here, at times it feels really challenging of, geez, you've got 11 programs, some of those are at completely different levels, like a track and field program's a really big program with many, many different athletes, many different coaches, support team configurations, down to something that's a bit more contained. So,
And have you seen particular principles, so in those sort of environments, I guess, in those structures, have you seen principles that really play out or that you found most effective across
good question.
sports?
I've never, and it'd be interesting to see what other people think, I've never come across an organisation yet that you go incredible in every area. The really good ones have got really good people.
Any that you hold up as a benchmark, even if they're not perfect?
Nothing that springs to mind immediately of, yep, that one. You hear different stories of others and know some people who are connected to a Hawthorn footy club.
Yep.
A very close mate of mine, his best mate works at Hawthorn and knows how they operate. And, you just hear that sort of second-hand information. But sometimes those really good people mask some average processes. And we're just lucky that sometimes you've got great people. Imagine if we had great people and great processes in every different area, you'd be unstoppable. And sometimes that might align and you get ongoing success.
Yeah, interesting. And for you then, what do you feel has been sort of your guiding philosophy then through your journey, and what you've been looking for or what you found most satisfying in those various roles and transitions as well?
For me, probably, I've always been someone that I never feel comfortable with, yep, we're doing a great job, happy, just tick it along. I've always been, how do we improve? How do I improve? I love reading, I hate reading fiction, couldn't give two hoots about that, but something that's actually going to make you better. Yep.
Any particular books that you've recommended the most or gifted the most? Or that you found have sort of changed you?
I know one that changed me quite significantly, not in a personal development sense, but I used to drink Coca-Cola like it was going out of fashion. You'd go to the Australian Open and, at a tournament like the Australian Open, you've got a free vending machine, 3, 4, 5 Cokes a day. And Tony Robbins unleashed the power within or something like that, one of his books, cold turkey, gone with the Coke. But books like Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, Blink. I can't read anymore because I never get time at home. The kids will always climb on top of you while you're on the couch. Yeah. So it's audio books for me now, in the car, on the way here, on the way home.
What have you got on? What are you listening to at the moment?
Right now, The Immunity Change, Robert Keegan. Yep. Prior to that, Changing on the Job by Jennifer Garvey-Berger. Okay. And I've sort of guided, most people know I did the AIS Performance Leaders course over 15 and 16. For me, that was an incredible experience. And that's just sort of helped guide me. The facilitators talked a lot about particular authors or someone like Garvey-Berger on theories around adult learning and stuff. So I've just sort of been guided by some of that that's a great author. They're developing this terrific, material, and just sort of go there and just sort of let it drift from, okay, Robert Keegan's involved in that. He was the mentor of her. Oh, great. Right. So
run down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, see where it goes. It certainly asks a lot more questions. You go home and you think about it a lot more and you go, shit, we've got a lot of work to do. Yeah. Sorry about that. And for me, the thing that I've enjoyed most and probably got the most out of is through that 2 years in the course with the AIS, or run by Melbourne Business School but supported by the AIS, I've actually got to know who I am. You don't know what you don't know about yourself, and then you start to figure out, you scratch some stuff away and you realise, and Alex is going through this at the moment, you start to, the Johari window, the things that are known to yourself, known to others, the things that are unknown to yourself and unknown to others. So a lot of people, everyone's got their own blind spots of what you just don't know about yourself, and it's pretty confronting when you start to realise, I didn't know that was a blind spot, and all of a sudden it pops up and you start paying it more attention and you're going, okay, so how do you make change and try and move forward? Alex last year and me, a year before that, we did a 360 review of, I think I went to about 17 or 18 people, some are in this room, like a lorry. I think, Jeff, did you do mine? Of different levels, from Richard Watson all the way, Bennett, Peter Karen, etc., down, and sports, and it was a scary process at the start because all the courses before us had told us how brutal it was. Like people are crying and they're shattered and they're this, and great, I can't wait to do that. And then we went through it, and I remember the day that they said, right, okay, here's the list on the board, who's going to have their debrief one-on-one with the facilitator, and today's a Tuesday, and I'm going, Thursday, whew, I've got 2 days to prepare for this. And then they've gone a minute later, so we're going to give out the packs and you're about to look through your feedback, and the anxiety's gone through the roof. Holy hell, here we go. And I remember having this distinct thought of whether I want to look at it or not, what's in there is already what people think, rightly or wrongly. What the people who contributed, that's what they think. So maybe just have a read and take it on board and take a couple of deep breaths, and it turned out to be, for me, probably the most impactful, rewarding process of what it really highlighted of, here are some things that you do really, really well, here are some things that you really need to build on, and it's got a really nice model of how it works from different types of behaviours that are in a creative space or in a reactive space, and how all the different areas interact with each other, and through a really carefully guided facilitation process. And I was really lucky, I had 3 different facilitators guide me through 3 stages. I had 2 really distinct aha moments that went, right, now I know why I do that, that and that.
Are you happy to share either of those, or absolutely not if you're not, that's okay?
Well, the aha moments really were piecing more to it with, like one thing, we had to draw our life story in 4 different phases. When you're a kid, as you were going through your first stages of your career, where you're at now and where you want to be. So one of the things I drew was, as a kid, I was the type of kid that would go, my dad worked hard, we had a family of 4, we didn't have much money. If I wanted to do things, I had to do it myself. So I used to work at Woolies at Sunny Park. So you make your own money, you buy your own tennis rackets. But as a really young kid, I used to wander the streets with a bucket and a sponge and, can I wash your car please? That'd be $5. So very entrepreneurial, but when I drew this picture, I drew it as a picture of me, and a kid in a car and a bucket, and what the facilitator talked about is like, where's the rest of your family sit in that? And it became we started to tease out things around, for me, relationships are really important. And you either, for some people I'll develop really strong relationships, and others maybe not, but not because you don't want to, just, certain people you will work closely with or click with or whatever it might be. But that became a really important factor in my life across wherever it is, whether it's here at work or in my other workplaces. And then as you start to tease that back out with, well, how does that impact on other things that you do around decision making, around this piece they call courageous authenticity, of really being able to challenge, but knowing. So for me, it's around how do you really challenge, but knowing that the relationship's still as it is,
still okay,
and it doesn't compromise that, and it's not until you actually dive into it to explore that it won't change. So a really good thing for me was, post this this significant debrief process, I brought all this back and shared it with Bennett.
Yeah, right.
I sat down, I put it all out on the desk. We had about an hour, and I showed him my life stories, and he was a bit like, whew, what are you, and I just thought it was really good to go there and show him,
Yep.
why, and, at times, Bennett, I I question some of my own decision-making processes because I'm worried about what you might think, and then we sort of work through that stuff. So it's changed my approach with him now of, okay, I'm going to go this way, and I know that won't change this other thing over here. If he says no, that's okay. I accept it. You know, it's not him having a crack at me personally and those things. So from that respect, it was really rewarding to bloody confronting.
Super interesting,
and you know, it opens up a lot more internal dialogue of now that you know you're feeling these things for a specific reason and not just in the past of being oblivious to it and going, I've got this gnawing feeling back here, but I don't know what it is, and you just sort of get on with it. But for me, it's just allowed me to go, I know what I need to do. I know that change isn't something that you can all of a sudden, you know, make this enormous leap in one hit and become the person that you want to become, but it's just gradually working away every day, chipping away at it. And that's what I really love about the reading side of it, of making time to learn more. So I'm really enjoying these couple of books at the moment around this adult learning development space, and so I know, you know, in our life, in our work, we can develop this really strong sense of the technical skill of knowledge and information and how we need to deliver that at an expert level for what we do. And that's really important, but I think there's this whole other stream which I'm seeing as really critical, particularly at an organisational level, of how do we actually get to that point where we really know who we are, we've got great reflective capabilities, and we understand each other, so we can actually have far better conversations. So that would be an unbelievable...
Driving better outcomes ultimately, obviously.
Ultimately, and, you know, through that course that I did, you end up getting to a point with a group of people, you know, somewhere between, we started with 16, we ended up with 12.
A couple didn't make it past the brutal stage, or...?
A couple of people found it incredibly confronting. But you get to this point of being completely open with each other, completely vulnerable about, and feeling okay with that. There's no way I would have been in that space years earlier. So it was sort of the right time for for me, because I'd actually thought about doing it in year one. Nah, didn't quite understand it. Year two, still not sure. And then right time, right place, right people.
Well, that's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that stuff. Obviously not an easy thing to do. So looking back then, in terms of your pathway through to high performance director, are there things that you wish you'd done sooner in your career? Like, are there strategies, like if you had advice for yourself, so if you had advice for your 30-year-old self, are there things that you would be saying to him in terms of what you wish you'd known sooner?
Yeah, good question. I wish I had have completed the equivalent of the MBA. To go to it right at the minute is going to be difficult. At the time doing it part-time, I love going to the lectures. Out of the work that I did really well, with good grades. But, it was 20 extra hours a week on top of a full-time load. And at the moment, and I know other people with families do it, but at the moment it's just not going to happen. By the time you get home, you do everything with the kids, you have dinner, it's 8:30. You fall into a heap about an hour later, and on weekends you get up, you do it all again with the kids, and that's terrific, like right at this point in time. Maybe one day down the track, but at the same time, if I'm not developing that side of the technical skill, I guess, really enjoying this other side of developing strengths in those, or really improving self. And I don't know, if I'm starting to feel much more comfortable. I could move to a job at a higher level, and whilst I don't have all the finance training and background, I think I understand enough about finance to work with other people who are experts in finance in an organisation. Because for me, in the end, around money, most importantly, you've got to have clear priorities and you've got to care about it. Like if you really don't give too much, I won't say what I was going to say. It's going to be profanity, and depending on the size of the organisation, great doing a couple of units in marketing through the course I did. That'll give you some background, but just if you're in a big enough place, just employ someone who's got the skills.
Knows the stuff, yeah, cool. Oh, that's really good.
Sorry.
Maybe
Maybe going to uni earlier would have been.
Yep.
But
okay.
for whatever reason, I fell into it at the time. And
yeah. Oh, it sounds like you followed it, your own path, and that's the whole point of it, right? Is there then, so if there's not particularly advice for your 30-year-old self, but for your children then, do you have a single piece that you think you'd want to pass on, or a message to pass on to them if you could only choose one?
Yeah, one message to them. No, I've got two messages for them. Besides clean your room.
Do what Dad says.
And what I've realised is that your kids are a reflection of yourself, which can be really scary at the same time. Especially when they do things, you go, oh God, that's not good, and that's come from me. I love that my kids are really active and sporty, and some of that's driven by my interest in sport and my wife's, and it's on at home all the time, and a number of people know this. My little girl loves running around the house thinking she's Sally Pearson and doing hurdles, and tomorrow we're going to buy hurdles at Heart Sport, because and yesterday she got this new crop top and something else. Look, Dad, Sally wears these. I'm like, yeah, she does. She wasn't happy that I had to tell her that Sally didn't run on the weekend because it was too windy when Mia wanted to come and she was sick. So I think sport's such an important part of, will be an important part of their life. I don't care if it's not tennis. I hope it's not, because I don't want to be a crazy tennis parent. I hope it's golf one day. Could be a crazy golf parent from a distance. But anything, whatever they choose, it's just great for their bodies, great for their minds, and those things. And then, I don't know, in the back of my mind, I've always got this thing of the world is changing so fast. There's so many jobs that don't exist now that will exist very soon. There's so many jobs that exist now that won't exist soon. And there's some that will be on forever. We'll always need doctors and those things, and it's just trying to encourage them to do something that they're going to really enjoy. So, I keep trying to nudge to Mia, you'd be a great doctor one day.
Plant the seed enough times.
No, I don't want to be a doctor, Dad. I don't like blood and that sort of stuff. But I think trying to at least put them into a pathway where they can see that they may not see initially, but that there's great opportunity in the future, whatever that may be. So trying to expose them to a few things now.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Troy. Open up to everyone for questions.
What do you like to do away from the QAS? Like, I know you've got the kids and you've got the home life, but
yeah.
Do you like to travel? Do you like to, you obviously read books or listen to them? Is there anything that really, like a hobby or a passion away from the workplace?
I'm a bit of a grass freak. It comes from tennis, not smoking grass freak. Turf. Let me clarify that if it's staying on video. And some of that, I don't know if that's an OCD thing of, I love nothing more than you mow your grass at the end, you look back and you go, how good's that look? And you see the change, going from scrappy and messy to finely manicured. So I used to bug the hell out of the groundsman at the tennis centre, like daily questions on chemicals and processes. And I don't know if you'd know too many average punters who have scarified and called their lawn as many times as I have.
You know what you just said.
Yeah. You know what you see those guys do out on the field?
Okay.
That crazy stuff. I used to love playing golf. Love golf. All I do now is play golf with Oliver in the morning with his little $8 Kmart set, but that's good fun. Golf was a great pastime, especially when living in Melbourne. You used to go to all the great courses, and through your connections through tennis, you'd be able to go to some amazing places and play, and with some terrific golfers themselves. Highlight, I played with Jeff Ogilvy twice as he was on his way up through the professional ranks. That was, you'd smash the hell out of a 7-iron and hit a soft pitching wedge. You'd go, geez, I'm not that good. Other pastimes, my wife and I used to love watching movies, so to be a Friday night thing pre-kids would be out to dinner, go to a movie, almost every week. I think we've been to the cinemas once in about 5 years.
Do you have a favourite?
Ringing true for many.
Do you have a favourite?
Favourite movie?
Yeah. Or top three?
No, I watch many movies.
Yeah.
Lots of different ones. I don't.
What would you have watched the most times?
Oh, this is embarrassing.
Excellent.
Bad Boys. Will Smith.
Brilliant.
And that's a bad one, like it's an action car movie if it's anyone's thinking of going
You
in.
read books, and you don't like fiction, but the movies you watch up.
Yeah, but you don't have to concentrate that hard, and it's a couple of hours of escapism as opposed to, I find reading, you really got to concentrate and sit there, and you need space, and that's why in the car it's good, just turn it on.
That's annoying.
Occasionally you get a bit tired, you go, flick that off and put on Nova or something. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So where do you see yourself in, 10 years?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I got through. In the past I had these really clear things. Right, I know I'd make them happen. Like, I want to work with some players on the men's tour. Yep, I did that. I want to work for at a state program level, state coach or something like that. Make that happen. That happened. The next job, and I got to that national after my 14s national coach, become national men's coach, and it was like, shit, I'm 28. I've got here. What do I do next? And I knew I was never going to become the Davis Cup coach or that. Working with the team at a team manager level, I'd done some stuff with Fed Cup and then it was more into the management side. But at a point in time, I'd like to maybe become a CEO of a state sporting organisation or a national sporting organisation. Here, if Bennett wants to leave one day, he knows that. That's why I keep asking if he's away, can I do his job? But I don't have a timeline. What I do know, recently there was some recruitments that went on, or, NSWIS, their CEO's changing. My equivalent was out to ad, and I had a lot of people say, well, do you want to go for it? And they're very attractive because my job at NSWIS pays 90 grand more. And the CEO job pays 300 plus and be great. I don't know if I'd like to live in Sydney, but I feel deep down I still got a few things I want to get right before you feel comfortable to make that move and leave something that you feel, okay, I really feel like I've done a good job and not just, there's another opportunity and bug it off. Yep. So no distinct, I know I've got at least a couple more years at least that I'd like to be here, and maybe it's more. It won't be less unless Bennett wants to get rid of me. Just wait for the time, mate. Yeah.
So are there any public figures that you admire or that you think influenced you, or anyone that you sort of find particularly inspiring?
Public figures. Just
Someone
public.
that you know about.
Look, I've been very lucky in my time in tennis. There was some amazing people to work closely with. Someone like Alicia Mollick, who I'm really close to. We've known each other. I'd known her since she was 14 or something. But an amazing individual, extremely caring, high morals. Very, very strong belief in what she's doing. To see her bounce back from going through when she had, she had a significant illness for a period of time with middle ear type stuff, and just to see how she coped through that and managed that. She's pretty amazing as an individual. And there's some other good people that you engage with at different times, and then also some that you thought, you held up a bit higher on a bit of a pedestal of that, and then as you see them in different positions, all of a sudden you go, oh, I didn't see that before. Yeah. I'm envious of someone, I love listening to, and I don't really follow politics at all that well, and I don't have strong feelings one way or the other, but I've got admiration for someone like Barack Obama, who speaks so well. And I know everything's scripted and it's in front of them and stuff, but just the delivery and the confidence and the belief, what he's saying or not, sort of out of, but just, when you hear someone who can speak that well and that articulately, it's, geez, I love that. Probably one other person, a number of you may have known or know of the name Scott Draper in tennis, someone I've known for a long time and a good close family friend, but I loved working with him in tennis he was, you know, he played tennis professionally, did well, tried playing golf professionally, put absolutely everything into it, had some injury, you know, back issues. He was on a break. I offered him a job here because we had someone leave, can you do a month? He said, no, I can do a week. And it was at our place for dinner one night. He said, I could probably give you a week, but I'm maybe about to accept a job somewhere. And that week turned into about 6 years. And the thing that I respect mostly about him is incredible enthusiasm and energy, huge amount of experience in the sport, very strong in his morals of sets the bar incredibly high and holds the line, and you know, it's very strong on what you do. You know, being very clear on your priorities, and almost to a point that was a bit of his undoing at times. Of he was so adamant about the level that it really upset a number of people at the very highest levels. But it was uncompromising, which I think is a nice thing that helped rub off on me. You know, like I'd love to talk to him because he'd remind you of how important that is. Because at times you forget about it and you let it slip.
With all these courses you learn and all these things, is it a good thing you become more analytical, or is it a bad thing?
Analytical about yourself?
About everything.
I've always been fairly analytical. My personality type, for those that have done a Myers-Briggs, I'm an INTJ. I'll tend to go away and think about stuff and then come back. And I think I've got a good skill at taking a lot of information, might take a little bit to distill it down to, we just need to do that and that. But at times it can get in your road a little bit. I found it, now that you know more about yourself, that initial challenge, it's almost like you're learning a new skill, and sometimes you get worse before you get better. And I feel like I went through a patch where I was actually getting worse because you're so now clear on what it is that you're not good at. And every time that popped up, I went, shit, there it is again. You know? And it was really challenging, and I feel like I'm starting to swing through and into that upward, actually now getting better. I don't know if you've found that. I'll throw it back to you. Throw the question back at him. Remember that?
Well, actually, I'm fighting my demons in a way, because I love initial, kind of that spontaneous, you know, the decision comes to your mind.
Yeah.
And with all the analysis and all that, I found you going back to that initial scene. Well, it's good to analyze, but it's like, you know, that spontaneous decision comes to your mind straight away. Go and do it. But quite often, you know, in the past, you just would go and hurt people in a way and all those things. So now you're doing exactly the same, but not trying to do collateral damage. So I just found it's kind of slowing the process down. That's why I asked you that question, because I would like to be fast with everything I do. So, but that's why I asked that question, you know. So.
Got to remember the saying, and this is one I'm not good at, is something they used to talk a lot about in our training course was slow down to speed up. And if you could do that, and I'm not good at that yet, I've got a fair bit of work to do on that. But I know what it means now. If I can, you'll feel like you can actually achieve more just by pulling back a little bit. It's just trying to get to that point.
And have the discipline to stay slow as well, or, you know,
Yeah.
slow it down as well.
Yeah, discipline's a hard one. Valued time at home and family, and then the next thing you know, you're on the phone and your wife's looked at you and you've gone, oh, sorry, put it down over there. So it does creep in at times, and sometimes it's just a look or catch yourself.
A reminder, gentle reminders.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
Troy, you're obviously a passionate parent. What about parenting? Is there things that you've experienced as a parent that's helped you at work? And is there things that have happened at work that's helped you be a better parent?
Oh, good question. Typically I'm a really, really patient person. With my kids, I find at times I'm not. And some of that could be because there's so much going on in your head. You know, like all of a sudden there's another whole thing that's been compounded in your work life, and you go home and you find yourself, come on, let's get out of the bath. Out of the bath now, please. Come on, let's go. Okay, here's the towel. You get out, I'm going. So it hasn't, but in this place I'm normally much better. And normally with myself with myself I'm not that good. But generally with other people I am. I think what kids have added is, not just my kids, but my wife as well. When I was a single bloke living in Melbourne, I'd be happy to work 100 days straight, don't care. I love what I do. Go to the office on a weekend. The only person you bump into is security, or the athletes that you're working with. And I did that for many years. I did have a period back in 2004 where I was unwell for a while, and it bit me on the arse. Of just constant overload, load, and then all of a sudden I fell into a heap for probably a couple of months. Didn't sleep well and all that sort of stuff. And but I think family certainly has added a lot more balance to, well, work is what you do. It's not who you. Like for me now, it's not who I am. I don't identify myself as, this is me as the person. It's what I do. But the family brings you very quickly back to why you do it as well. But I get a huge amount of satisfaction out of what I do. But in the end, being able to share that with them and for them, and they've got an idea of, my kids have got an idea of what I do. Like they see the facilities, they love to come out and run on the track, and they watch it on TV. So I think, I don't know, what time's the triathlon on at Abu Dhabi? Andrew, you'd know. I think it's on tonight maybe. Record it on Foxtel and watch that with them, and they just they get into it, so that's kind of nice to be able to share.
Anything else? Great. Well, thanks very much, Troy. Really appreciate it, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming along again. And
Hope that was
questions.